Progress.
Good morning. My name is Georgette Greenlee. I'm Secretary of the Chicago Transit Authority Transit Board. Today is October 13th, 2023, and we are going to begin our committee meeting for Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Jakes.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the October 13th, 2023 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Georgette, would you please call the roll?
Director Miller.
Here.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes, here.
Director Jakes.
Yes, here.
Director Ortiz. Here. Director Ja. Here. Director Jakes, we do have a quorum.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of September 22nd, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja.
Yes.
Director Ortiz. Yes. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
The motion to approve the minutes from September 22nd, 2023 passes.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine.
Morning.
Morning.
Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be reporting on the August results. You can right. Now that I have my technical skills in line, I will get to the report. So the August revenues are following a similar type form of what we've seen in prior months through the beginning half of 2023. We see fare and pass totals coming in about $1.9 million better than expected. We see reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, and we see non-fare bucks totals coming in a little bit below expectations by about $500,000. But overall, for the month of August, we see a positive budget variance of $1.4 million. And we see about $2.6 million better than August of 2022. With regard to year-to-date revenues, we see a similar type pattern here where we're positive on fare and pass totals by $10.2 million, reduced fare subsidy coming in as expected, non-fare bucks totals coming in better than expected by $3.6 million on a year-to-date basis. So overall, through August, we see a total aggregate positive budget variance of 13.8 versus revenues. And with regard to our expenses, we see August expenses coming in better than expected for labor by about $5 million, $4.8 million for the month. Again, this has come down a little bit from the beginning of the year as our hiring efforts have continued to ramp up. Materials coming in essentially flat, but slightly positive. Fuel coming in positive by $1.2 million. Power by almost $400,000. Injuries and damages coming in as expected. And then security services is negative by about $2.5 million. Again, as we've ramped up our security efforts throughout the system. Other expenses coming in $4.4 million to the positive. So overall for the month of August, we see positive variance of $8.3 million. And when you couple that with our positive favorability on revenues, we're $9.8 million better than budgeted expectations for the month of August. With regard to year-to-date expenses, we see again positive favorability on labor, essentially flat but slightly down on materials. Fuel and power have been good performers for us throughout the year. Injuries, damages coming in as expected, and security services coming in below expectations or negative expectations by $8.6 million, again, because of the ramped up security efforts throughout the system. Other expenses coming in $19.6 million favorable. And overall, year to date, with regard to our expenses, we're a little over $75 million to the positive versus our budgeted expectations. When you factor in our revenues, we're about $89.2 million to the positive on a year-to-date basis. With regard to our public funding for the month, we see positive variance here for sales tax and for PTF, the public transportation funds. We see negative variance for RET, the real estate transfer tax, and PTF on RET. And again, this follows form of what we've seen in prior months as interest rates continue to go up. We've seen that having a long shadow over housing and commercial sales, which depresses the amount of RET that we receive on a monthly basis. With regard to year-to-date public funding, again, we see positive variance on sales tax and PTF, negative variance on real estate transfer tax and PTF on real estate transfer tax. But overall, we're essentially flat for the year, slightly positive by $1.5 million. With regard to our federal relief funding draws, we are drawing about $50 million for the month. That is slightly higher than what we've seen in prior months. And that was because we preemptively drew a little bit more in case there was a federal shutdown, so that we could have enough funding to cover whatever period of shutdown that may have occurred. Thankfully, that did not happen. And so we'll utilize these extra draws in the coming month or two to offset draws that we would otherwise have to do in those months. We've drawn to date now about 52.5% of the total allocation, but we still have about $1 billion, remaining. So again, we expect this funding to last us, plus or minus to the end of 2025. With regard to the three commodities that we purchased, fuel, power, and natural gas, we're where we need to be locked in for the foreseeable future on all three commodities. Fuel, because of the strategic method that we went about purchasing fuel when it was at lows, we're locked in for where we need to be through 2025, which is very advantageous now, as you're seeing, because of all of the problems in the Middle East, fuel prices starting to spike up again. So we're locked in for the foreseeable future on that commodity. We continue to look for opportunities to buy on the other two commodities. But again, the strategy's worked out very well for us and being able to lock in at favorable pricing. Glad to answer any questions that you may have on August or year-to-date results.
Thank you, Jeremy. You drew down 50 million in case of federal shutdown.
Right.
We know that that's temporary. So if there's another threat of a federal shutdown, will there be another set of draws to happen? Or are you going to lean on the 50 million that you already drew down?
So the plan, great question. The plan is that we'll use the draws that we've done to date for, the September draw that we would need to do. And, that may last us into October, potentially, depending on what the monthly draw would be for September. We'll continue to monitor the situation, and we will do additional draws if we need to. If it does look like there's going to be, some type of shutdown at the federal government level. We have had a very long strategy of just drawing down what we need in the months that we need it. We continue to plan to do it that way. That was the guidance that we received early on from the FTA. And again, that strategy has worked out very well for us, and we'll continue to do it as such. But we will continue to monitor the situation, because if, again, we want to make sure that we're fully protected if there is any type of short-term, shutdown in the federal government, and that we have the money available for those, allowable costs to offset those, on a monthly basis.
And if it's not a shutdown, then the money that's been drawn will be allocated somewhere else?
The money that will be drawn will be used for the same allowable expenses that they're being used for, not only in August, but the prior months, but we'll be using those for allowable expenses in September and potentially beyond if they were to last that long.
Okay, and with the negative variance with security.
Yes.
With us getting ready to do budget, will the adjustment be made for the 2024 budget based upon what we are experiencing now as far as security?
Yes, the plan is for the 24 budget to reflect the additional security that we have laid on through 2023 that was not incorporated in the 23 budget. So it would be reflective of those ramped up efforts that would be incorporated into the baseline for 24.
Okay, and I don't know if this is more so for you or for President Carter. So the money that's being used for security, will all of that be laid out as it relates to this is what we've got? We've done this, we've gotten additional cameras, we've gotten additional officers. Will all that be spelled out so that the public can see?
Yeah, as part of our budget book, there are discussions about initiative, a pursue part of our overall strategy. There is a section that will specifically lay out exactly what we have done and what we will be doing in the upcoming year with regards to our security initiatives, including the security guards, the voluntary special employment program that we fund for the police department, as well as the additional resources we'll be putting into that area.
Okay. And success rate, what would you say the success has been with that, with increasing the security?
Well, I think, and I'm actually going to talk about this in the president's report. Obviously, the ultimate success rate is reduction in crime. I have good news on that front, which I'll be speaking to in the president's report. But I also like to make the point, and I think the police would say the same thing to you, is that you can't measure what doesn't happen.
Sure.
And so a big part of the effort that we engage in is really a visibility campaign to make sure that there are people on the system who are viewed as the eyes and ears, and ultimately, along with the police department and resources that they put onto our system, act as a deterrence against crime on CTA.
We'll wait for the president's report.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. No further.
Another point I wanted to make with regards to the government shutdown. The Federal Transit Administration is in a very different position this year with regards to government shutdown than they have been in past government shutdowns, because historically, the funding to keep the Federal Transit Administration open came out of what's referred to as the General Revenue Fund of the congressional appropriations, which meant that when Congress did not appropriate money each year, the administrative expenses could not be incurred. With the last reauthorization, the administrative expenses were actually put into the trust fund, which is a fund that basically exists. It's called the Highway Trust Fund, but it has a mass transit account that basically funds certain activities of the Department of Transportation. And that fund remains active regardless of whether or not there's a government shutdown this time. So FTA, unlike in past government shutdowns, will not necessarily have to shut down their entire administrative operations. Their employees will still be able to come to work and will still continue to get paid because they're being paid out of the trust fund. What will happen, though, is that certain grant-making activities may be impacted because other aspects of the government, particularly the Treasury Department and others, may be shut down. So Jeremy is correct in terms of making sure that we're having access to and are able to have the funds that we need available, because it's not totally clear yet how the grant accessing software, the program that we use to access our funds through the federal government, how that will operate under this type of scenario. It'll be a first time occurrence of that happening. So we'll obviously be monitoring it very closely. Jeremy is obviously making the right decision in terms of ensuring that we're not going to have a cash flow problem because of the government shutdown. And as well as all the rest of us, none of us are able to predict what's going to happen in Congress these days. So we all kind of have to wait and see how that plays out. But we will continue to do everything that we need to do to make sure that it does not impact us financially, and that we're in a position to continue to maintain the funds that we need in order to continue our ongoing operations.
And I'm sorry, Jim, one last question. Based upon the numbers of upward mobility, would you say or decline that ridership is up based upon those numbers?
Oh,
Yes.
Jeremy can speak to that, but I'll also be speaking to that in my president's report.
I'm still in all your things.
Ridership is up, and we've hit some milestones over the past month that we're very excited about, that continue to show the growth in ridership that we anticipate will continue throughout the rest of the year. But we're over 1 million rides a day for a number of days this past month, and I know that we have one of the best weeks in ridership that we have had since the pandemic hit over the course of the past couple of weeks. So things are still moving in a very positive trend, and I'll give you some more information about that in my president's report.
was actually speaking at a conference this morning, a bunch of bond investors, and they too echo the positive sentiments, which is a large change than what we've seen previously of, where's the new normal? And I think that they had indicated in a poll that they still think that the new normal will not settle for another year or two or longer potentially. So again, I think that we've seen sustained growth in ridership and there's more to come. So
How are we looking compared to other transit agencies?
We're about where other transit agencies are.
Are we?
We're in the mid 60 percentile for our ridership from pre-2019 levels. Most other transit agencies are in that same area. I think the one outlier might be New York, but New York is a totally different beast because of the reliance on public transportation to just about go anywhere. Their ridership is growing maybe a little bit faster, but they are still below pre-pandemic levels. No major transit system is at a pre-pandemic level at this point.
All right. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, Director John, any questions?
No, thank you so much.
Director Ortiz? No, thank you. Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Lee?
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. You may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is an ordinance amending ordinance number 018-35 as amended, authorizing and modifying a short-term borrowing program for capital purposes secured by sales tax receipts, authorizing the issuance from time to time of obligations secured by such revenues in an aggregate principal amount outstanding at any one time, not in excess of $600 million pursuant to such short-term borrowing program, authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures. Say that 3 times, what I just read. Jeremy Fine.
yes, good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I present for your consideration an ordinance authorizing the expansion of the capital line of credit program from 300 million to 600 million. The expanded line of credit program will allow us to do interim funding for critical projects, including the red-purple modernization and the red line extension, as well as other projects in the capital improvement program. The line of credit will be repaid once federal or state reimbursements are received or when long-term bonds are issued based on the funding source of the project. CTA currently has 2 lines of credit outstanding, one with JP Morgan and one with Wells Fargo, each for up to 150 million. We will solicit bids from banks for the additional 300 million, and the short-term borrowing program will be secured by a pledge of sales tax revenue receipts on parity with this existing second lien sales tax revenue bonds, which is our current working lien. This concludes my remarks, and I'm glad to answer any questions.
No questions.
Director Lee? No question. Director Miller?
No question.
Chairman Barclay?
Jeremy, are there any current bond obligations that are outstanding?
Yes, we have currently about 155 million currently drawn against the existing $300 million. Again, this is a very advantageous tool for us to use to provide interim funding, because otherwise what we have to do is we have to borrow via a bond deal at higher interest rates, have that money sit not being used until those actual draws or those payments to the vendors actually occur. So this program has saved us millions of dollars since we implemented this a few years ago. So it's a very smart way to do the interim funding so that we're not sitting on long-term bond proceeds and paying high interest costs. We don't necessarily need all of the funds at one time. We just draw this down as needed and then repay it from the funding sources I mentioned or via a bond deal that we would do down the road.
Director Ortiz? Thank you. Director Ja?
No questions, thanks.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz to place the item on the omnibus for approval. We will take a roll call vote. Director Lee? Yes. Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz? Yes. Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may proceed to agenda item number 5.
Agenda item 5 is consenting assignment of a lease at the Kimball Rail Station. Bill Mooney.
Morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff recommends approval of an ordinance sent to the assignment of a lease at the Kimball Rail Station on the Brown Line. CTA leases the retail concession space located at Kimball Station at 4755 North Kimball to First Equity Group Concessions, LLC, an Illinois corporation. First Equity has requested CTA's consent to assign the Kimball lease to Shreve Kimball, Inc. The assignee is the current operator of the business at this location as sublessee of First Equity. This assignment will allow CTA to contract directly with the operator of the concession. The assignment also contains a payment plan for the assignee to pay the amounts owed on the lease by First Equity. The assignment otherwise will not affect the terms of the lease, and the assigner will remain liable if the assignee should default. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
I have no questions.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Ortiz, and Chairman Barclay.
None.
Director Miller,
None.
Director Lee. Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board.
So moved.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that this item be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Ja.
Yes.
The motion to place this item on the omnibus has passed. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 6.
Review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Forest Preserves of Cook County to convey property and take mitigation measures due to impacts from the Red Line Extension Project. Bill.
Thank you. Further into the proposed Red Line Extension Project, RLE, and consistent with the August 2022 final environmental impact statement record of decision, staff recommends that CTA enter into an IGA with the Forest Preserve of Cook County to prepare and convey 2 parcels acquired from the city of Chicago to the Forest Preserve and provide mitigation measures benefiting the Bobium Woods Forest Preserve. Pursuant to CTA's NEPA commitments, CTA would pay the Forest Preserve an amount not to exceed $587,000 to provide for mitigation of impacts to Bobium Wood, including environmental site assessments of the conveyed parcels, as well as support for the construction of a new trail connection from Elko Gardens to Bobium Woods. Separately, CTA would provide for signage and wayfinding within the new 130th Street station and on the exterior grounds regarding the Bobium Forest Preserve. Finally, CTA will provide Forest Preserve with up to $150,000 in unsold advertising space on Red Line trains and bus routes that use the 103rd Street garage to encourage CTA riders to use public transportation to visit the forest preserves. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
Bill, so what's the handshake between CTA and Cook County? If we're doing all of we're paying you this and we're doing X, Y, and Z, what are they doing other than receiving a check?
So the new 130th station that's planned for the Red Line Extension Project terminal in Elko Gardens is going on property. And ultimately, when the new rail line comes through, it causes an impact to the forest preserves. So under the environmental assessment, when we studied the project, we had to identify potential impacts to the surrounding area and create mitigations for those impacted parties. Under specifically, in this case, the section 4F of the federal registration for this, which is on park spaces. So we actually are compensating the forest preserve for the impact that we'd be making to their property by putting the extension through there. Ultimately, we cut off access to a certain portion of their property by the train tracks as they come across Old 130th Street. And ultimately, we are compensating them for the long-term impact of that access.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Lee, do you have any questions?
Questions?
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Ortiz,
Oh, thank you.
Director Ja. Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that this matter be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes. You may now proceed to agenda item number 7.
Review.
Before you went to that item last time. Add a little bit more to what Mr. Mooney said about the exchange that we're doing here. Under the federal law, if the question may come up, why not just pay the money for the property that we're impacting? Under the federal law, the intent of that law is to replace the park land that is lost. And so, but what agencies have to do when they engage in what in effect is a taking of park property is that you have to identify other places where you can restore park property to make the community whole. And so in this particular case, what we end up doing is finding other parcels of land that can be utilized for the purpose for which the original parcel was impacted, that basically make them whole, for lack of a better word. So the idea is to not just give them money, because money doesn't get you, a playground or whatever it is you may have lost. The idea is to find another place to create a similar opportunity for the purpose for which that property was being used. And that's what we would engage in to basically address this issue under this agreement.
So would it be on CTA to find the property?
Yes.
And has the property been found?
Yes.
Yes.
The board approved an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago last month that included the two parcels that are in question in this. So we are acquiring from the city of Chicago parcels that we then are conveying to the Forest Preserve.
Okay.
That's it. I just wanted to clarify that one point for you.
I appreciate that. So agenda 7, review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Park District for the acquisition of a park parcel red line extension project in exchange for improvements to and conveyance of replacement parcels. Bill.
Sorry, which agenda item?
7.
Wait, my order feels off in my notes here.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance off. There it is. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Park District for the acquisition of a portion of Fernwood Parkway in support of the Red Line Extension project. CTA has identified parcels of property necessary for the project, and the board designated the parcels for acquisition. Park District owns an existing passive park, Fernwood Parkway, located between 99th and 103rd Streets. Has agreed to transfer the parcel to the CTA in exchange for multiple parcels of equivalent acreage on the Park District's parcel. Park District will choose from a list of multiple parcels to create replacement parks, and CTA will make the improvements to the replacement parks, including the environmental assessments and remediations before conveying them to the Park District. Similar to what President Carter mentioned earlier, in this circumstance, we are acquiring passive park space from the Park District itself, and we have identified a series of parcels that we will make available to them to compensate them in acreage.
I have no questions.
Director Lee,
No question.
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Ortiz,
Questions.
Director Ja, Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz, that this item be placed on the omnibus. We will take a roll call vote. Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Ja,
Yes.
motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 8.
View of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Housing Authority for the acquisition of a parcel and acceptance of permanent and temporary easements for the Red Line Extension project. Bill.
Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Housing Authority for property located within Elko Gardens Philip Murray Homes Complex. CTA has identified parcels of property necessary for the project, and the board designated the parcels for acquisition. CHA owns the identified parcel located near South Greenwood Avenue between 130th and 132nd Streets in Chicago. CTA will pay the CHA $950,000 for the fee property, $53,200 for the permanent easement, and $145,000 for the temporary easement, and is required to pay closing costs. The IGA also requires CTA to perform environmental site assessments that CHA reasonably requests, and CTA would bear the cost of such work if necessary. We're happy to take any questions on this item.
No questions.
Director Lee,
Bill, can you give us some just context around,
Absolutely.
why this is happening?
So the planned extension has a terminal at 130th Street. The land identified for the placement of the terminal is currently land owned by the CHA. So we are acquiring the land for the terminal itself.
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No questions.
Director Ortiz.
No.
Director Ja,
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that this matter be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 9.
Review of an ordinance authorizing payment of up to $6 million for stipends to encourage proposals for the Red Line Extension Project Design Build.
Swear this is the last one from me today, so. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing the payment of up to $6 million for stipends to encourage proposals for the Red Line Extension Project Design Build contract. CTA is undertaking a two-step procurement process in which interested contractors first submit their qualifications, and those deemed most qualified were invited to submit proposals. September 8th, 2023, CTA staff issued a request for proposals to the 3 selected proposers. Industry custom and best practice for design build mega projects calls for a payment of stipends to unsuccessful proposers who are pre-qualified and submit compliant proposals. CTA staff recommends the stipend for this contract for each unsuccessful proposer be set at $3 million. In order to be eligible to receive the stipend, the shortlist proposers will be required to sign a stipend agreement as part of the RFP process. The stipend is only payable after proposals are submitted, reviewed by CTA, and a design build contract is awarded. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
Bill, I'm not understanding what you're saying. So 3 million, you submit a proposal. If the proposal is not accepted, we give you a stipend?
Yes, sir. So the way this works is to put together a proposal for a bid of this magnitude from a contractor. They go out a significant amount of investment in the upwards of $12 to $30 million of project of this scale. So to support innovation on the proposals, to support aggressive bids, they have to really get that type of honing in on their proposals. They have to make that level of investment. We want to encourage that. So as the winning bidder wins a project, right? And they win the opportunity to earn that work and earn that fee in the long run. The losing bids do not. And the best way to have competition is to make sure that people are at the table and interested in pursuing the work. And so we are stipending a little bit of the offset of the cost to encourage that engineering work that they have to put in to sharpen their pencils. As part of that, anything that they propose in concepts as part of the project, we own up the rights to. So down the line, any innovation that the losing contractor may propose, we own the rights to that as part of the stipend agreement. So we could actually negotiate that as part of the winning agreement as well.
Okay. Got it. Makes sense.
Director Ja, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Director Ortiz,
Thank you for that background.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Lee.
So one question, Bill, so like the amounts, is this in line with other agencies, what they offer, or is this high, low point?
So we did a comparative to other mega projects in the industry. It is within the range of most of those other industries. It's a little higher than some, a little less than others. Market has been very challenging right now. Getting design build contracts and competition on design build contracts in an industry that's very flush with work right now is keeping people interested in the table that they want this piece of work. They want to chase this piece of work is really important. So.
Thank you.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz, that this matter be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 10.
View of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority for access to an aerial photography subscription. Mike Connolly and Elsa. Just you, Mike?
Just me.
All right.
Thank you. Good morning, Mike Conley, your Chief Planning Officer. This ordinance would authorize an IGA with the Regional Transportation Authority to allow CTA access to high-resolution aerial imagery from a vendor called Nearmap. The Regional Transportation Authority has a contract with Nearmap, and under that contract, CTA will continue to receive access to Nearmap's high-resolution aerial imagery. RTA subscription is available not only to CTA, but also to Metra and PACE, our sister agencies. This Nearmap resolution imagery is significantly higher resolution than most others available and really has a strong value to us as an agency as we do our future planning. With Nearmap aerial photography, CTA staff and contractors associated with our departments and monitor and analyze both infrastructure and environmental changes over time. The near map imagery is updated several times a year and dates back to 2014. This service is free to CTA through this IGA with the RTA. Thank you. And at this point, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions.
No questions, Mike. Thank you.
Director Ja,
No questions. Thanks.
Director Ortiz,
Thank you.
Chairman Barclay,
None.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Lee,
Three is great. Questions?
Director Jakes. There are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take the roll call vote. Director Ja? Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 11.
Review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal FY 2022 transit security grant funds. Nancy Ellen.
Good morning. Nancy Ellen Zussman, Chief Safety and Security Officer for CTA. The Transit Security Grant Program is part of a comprehensive set of measures authorized by Congress to help strengthen the nation's critical infrastructure against risks associated with potential terrorist attacks. In federal fiscal year 2022, the TSGP allocated $93 million to the nation's key high-threat urban areas to enhance security measures for critical transit infrastructure, including bus, rail, and ferry systems. CTA has received grant money under the program every year since it was enacted in 2010. CTA was awarded fiscal year 2022 TSGP funds in the amount of $647,520. The grant awarded $647,520 for CPD's Transit Terrorism Surge Operations Sustainment Project. Staff recommends that CTA enter into an intergovernmental agreement with CPD to pass through this money in fiscal year 2022 Department of Homeland Security funds to CPD for transit-related anti-terrorism operations. CPD is the primary transit security provider for the CTA and is therefore eligible for reimbursement of operational costs that apply to counterterrorism. Do you have any questions?
Nancy, for the sake of the public,
Sure.
I want to state how, we had a very great conversation, you, myself, and Kevin regarding this grant. And so that the public will know that one, that CTA does not have its own security force.
Correct.
That is the responsibility of the Chicago Police Department.
Correct.
Okay, and that this grant is, we're the person that gets the money and then pass it on.
Correct.
A CPD cannot apply for the grant.
Correct.
I was saying, so all of that is, and I just really want the public to understand that. Yeah.
Completely understand.
Okay.
So let me just, you and I did have a very nice conversation about this. So the federal government has a program that only transit agencies are eligible to apply for, and it's for security related to anti-terrorism activities. CTA does not have its own police force. We use the Chicago Police Department to provide enforcement and security on the system. It is CPD that needs this money, but they are not eligible to apply for it. So CTA applies for the money on behalf of CPD, and then through an intergovernmental agreement, we pass that money to CPD for them to use. And as we discussed, this is fiscal year 2022 money. So it's basically in arrears. So they've already done the work. This is for them to be reimbursed. So CTA, because it doesn't have its own police force, a lot of transit agencies do, but we do not. Otherwise, there would be no way for the Chicago Police Department to get this federal assistance. So CTA applies for the money, passes it through these annual intergovernmental agreements. Every year we do the same thing. We've been doing it for a long time, and that's what this ordinance is for.
Okay, and want to make sure that, once again, everyone understands this is for anti-terrorism. So
Anti-terrorism.
when we have the Bud Billiken Day Parade and the Columbus Day Parade and Beyonce concert and Taylor Swift concert and all of these major events, that this money is for police officers to make sure that the public feels safe.
Correct. It's around what they designate as surge events. So the marathon, that would be classified as a surge event. So it's only for anti-terrorism activities. It doesn't impact CTA's budget at all. It's a straight pass through of federal funds that CTA applies for on behalf of the Chicago Police Department because they're not eligible. So I would imagine, given everything happening in the world right now, there will be some surge activities, anti-terrorist activities that CPD will decide to deploy its officers for. And then next year, we will be trying to get money to get reimbursed for them related to that.
And I don't want to belabor the point, but because of the alleged day of rage that's been called for.
Today, yes.
And I'm not speaking on being pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. I'm talking about the day of rage that is allegedly supposed to happen. Would this money cover that, or CTA or the Chicago Police Department, not CTA, will the Chicago Police Department on behalf of CTA on today do something with that coverage?
Potentially, they would deploy additional resources to address that. They would keep track, right?
Okay.
Timesheets and the like. And then next year, they would be seeking reimbursement because it's in arrears. So we would be here a year from now seeking that money.
So we have a net 365.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy. No further questions.
Are there any additional questions? Director Lee?
Just one question, I guess, can you just talk about, for the public's sake, how the CTA and the CPD kind of collaborate on these different types of initiatives, or is it more just the CPD, sides?
So, and I will invite up, is Kevin Ryan here? My Vice President of Security. Kevin is in daily contact with the Chicago Police Department. So I think I'm going to go ahead and let him answer specific questions about that relationship.
Good morning.
Morning.
Can you repeat the question, please? Or with-
To highlight the collaborative efforts between CPD and CTA?
We, as Nancy Allen stated, I speak to Commander Byrd and the command staff of the police department on a daily basis. Getting to your point, we had a conference call with the FBI yesterday. So we discussed not only terrorism, homeland security related issues, but Commander Byrd and I go through incidents that happen on the CTA, crime trends, what we're seeing, and I get his deployments. I make my recommendations, and then we deploy our private security based on his deployments. It's all collaborative. So we're talking together constantly, and our investigators are speaking to the public transportation detectives daily, as well as we assist them with the STSC room, which is the monitoring room for the cameras and everything like that. So it's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, thank you. Just safety is the top priority. We just want to make sure that everyone understands what's going on, because, thank you. Questions?
Director Miller?
No question.
Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Ortiz?
No question.
Director Ja?
Just one question. Is the funding request related to the request for reimbursement, or is there like a max or a cap on how much you can request?
So it's a discretionary grant program, which means we can ask for how much we want. That doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be awarded everything we ask for. It's up to the federal government. And in this case, it's the Department of Homeland Security to decide how much, because it's not just us competing for the funds. It's transit agencies across the country.
And does that carry over? The funding that you get carry over?
Not sure what you're asking in terms of carryover.
Do you always request what the CPD is asking for reimbursement, or do you go above and beyond that? And in that case, the excess amount, does that carry over for?
So this particular grant program, we also applied for some funding for ourselves, and that went to cybersecurity.
Okay.
So we make a decision of how much of money that we receive is earmarked based on their response to our request for reimbursement, how much is going to go to CPD and how much is going to go for other anti-terrorist type activities that CTA would do, like I said, cybersecurity.
So it's not a sole pass-through program, right?
It's right.
Got it.
This intergovernmental agreement is for the pass-through
Okay.
because CPD can't apply on its behalf.
And are there guidelines for CPD in terms of how their mandates of like what constitutes CTA related expenses versus not?
So there's the language of the application is going to say what it can cover in terms of activities. We could go into more detail, you know, as Kevin said, it's deployment based on these surge dates and what they can do. It has to be anti-terrorist activities. So it can't be what you would sort of consider more traditional crime deterrence. It really needs to relate back to anti-terrorist activities.
Thank you.
So Nancy, I'm sorry, I have to go back now. My question now is almost for Jeremy. You apply for the grant. And if it's backdated, let's say you apply for the grant and the government says, well, we're only giving you 30% of your ask. Then where does the other 70% come from? Because if it's reimbursed, if it's supposed to be reimbursed, then who picks up the reimbursement?
Keep in mind that the police department's already paid these expenses, right? So it is a pure reimbursement. If it isn't reimbursed by the federal government, that means it's part of what the police department would be paying.
Okay, so they would just have to eat that.
It doesn't come, the cost doesn't come to CTA in any way. This is all CPD expense for deploying these resources, for which a percentage of it will be reimbursed. I think it's important to point out, this program is oversubscribed. It's a discretionary program, as Nathaniel indicated. There are always more expenses than there is money available to pay for it. So no one goes into this process assuming they're getting all the costs reimbursed. We've never gotten all the costs reimbursed in the history of the program itself, but every little bit helps. And I'm sure if you were to talk to the police superintendent, he would say that's, you know, a few $1 million that they now don't have to cover from their budget that have been paid for by CTA.
So bottom line is, we don't have to pay for it.
Correct.
There you go. All right.
We have been very successful in getting this, and as Nancy Ellen said, you know, this has become a very aggressive pool of people competing for this funding. So the fact that we continue to receive, you know, the funding is a good testament to the work that safety and security is doing, the grant proposal application and whatnot, and getting in there and getting this funding secured on a yearly basis.
We normally do very well. We were right behind New York normally with the funding. So New York gets the lion's share and we usually come in second.
Good.
This program has a somewhat interesting hearing. When it first was set up, the money was being spread pretty evenly throughout the entire country. And so, you know, St. Cloud, Minnesota may get a certain amount of money as much as Chicago got. Congress didn't like that approach and actually said that we need to be spending the majority of the money in what we would view as high target areas like New York, Chicago, LA, you know, Washington, DC, things like that. And the program was sort of revamped to basically target more of the money going to those areas and less money going to other areas around the country. That has been in place for a number of years, and that sort of drives how much we end up getting. And as Kevin indicated, you know, we tend to do very well, probably right behind New York in terms of the amount of money that we get reimbursed for.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We will take a roll call vote. Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes. You may now move to agenda item number 12.
Of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of cybersecurity insurance coverage for policy year November 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2024. Savon?
That's correct. Thank
All right, all right.
Thank you. Sisavon Baker from the Law Department. We are coming before the board
For renewal of our cyber insurance policy, this is an annual policy that is renewed every year. And the term of this policy will begin November 1st, 2023 and end October 31st, 2024. Our insurance broker, Alliant and DBE Paradigm marketed this coverage to the insurance market and approached 51 insurance companies for competitive proposals. We recommend proceeding with the most competitively quoted insurer, AmTrust. This carrier has offered to maintain our current sublimits at a full $2 million policy limit, such as cyber extortion, data recovery, and business interruption. Our deductible is still at $1 million, and our base premium will be approximately $140,000 before taxes and fees, which reflects a 33% increase. This insurance policy continues to provide a number of protections for the CTA related to cyber breaches or intrusions on the CTA's computers and networks, as well as cyber extortion. We recommend renewal of this policy with AmTrust, and I am happy to answer any questions.
No questions. Thank you.
Director Lee,
No question.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Ortiz. Thank you. No. Director Ja. Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
And now I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that this matter be placed on the omnibus for board approval. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chairman Barclay, Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Ortiz, Director Ja. The motion passes. Director Jakes, you may now proceed to agenda item number 13.
Of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of blanket railroad protective liability insurance for policy year November 1st, 2023 to October 31st, 2024. Sisavon.
Thank you very much. This is our annual policy that the CTA has had in place for 14 years. It is a blanket policy that covers all CTA contractors and certain non-contractors who perform work within 50 feet of the CTA railroad right-of-way. The CTA enrolls these businesses in the program and prorates the cost of the insurance across the construction projects, such that CTA is not out of pocket for the cost of the insurance. Our insurance broker, Misro, now Alliant, and DBE Paradigm, again marketed the renewal of this annual policy to the insurance market, and our incumbent insurer, Aspen Specialty Insurance, offered the best price for the renewal. The rates remain the same as the expiring policy, and it's due generally to the favorable market. Our initial base cash deposit is $13,519 before taxes and fees, and we are requesting a not to exceed amount of $500,000 for the projected premium. We recommend this carrier, and I'm happy to answer their questions or concerns.
No questions.
Director Ja, any questions?
Questions, thanks.
Director Ortiz?
No, thank you.
Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Miller?
Question.
Director Lee?
No question.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
May I now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Okay.
It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? Motion passes. Director Jakes? We may now proceed to agenda item number 14.
The next order of business today is the review of contracts number B1 through B4 infrastructure. I have no questions.
Director Ja, any questions?
No questions.
Director Ortiz? Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Lee?
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. We may now proceed to contract number D1.
Our next order of business is the review of contract number D1, contract award for planning. No questions.
Director Lee, are there any questions?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Ortiz? Director Ja?
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. We may now proceed to contract F1 through F2.
Our next order of business is the review of contracts numbered F1 and F2, contract award for education. No questions.
Director Ja, any questions?
No questions.
Director Ortiz? Chairman Barclay?
No question.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Lee?
No question.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions. We may now proceed to contract H1.
Our next order of business is the review of contract number H1, safety. No questions.
Director Lee?
No question.
Director Miller,
No question.
Chairman Barclay,
No question.
Director Ortiz.
No.
Director Ja.
No questions.
Director Jakes, there are no further questions.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 8 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that the 8 contracts be placed on the omnibus. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja,
Yes.
Director Ortiz, Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Jakes, the motion passes.
Since there's no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval, or did I just do that?
No.
I did not. Okay,
So moved.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay. Director Jakes.
Yes,
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Shaw. Motion passes.
and finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja.
Yes.
Director Ortiz.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Lee.
Yes.
Director Jakes, you may adjourn the meeting.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Georgette Greenlee, I'm Secretary for the Chicago
Recording in
Transit Authority.
progress.
Good morning. My name is Georgette Greenlee. I'm Secretary for the Chicago Transit Authority Transit Board. And we are beginning our regularly scheduled meeting for October 13th, 2023. Chairman Barclay.
Good morning. I would like to call to order the meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for October 13th, 2023. Georgette, please call the roll.
Director Lee.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Chairman Barclay.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Ortiz.
Here.
Director Ja.
Here.
Chairman Barclay, you do have a quorum.
Our first order of business is public comment. Georgette?
Chairman Barclay, we have 4 public comments for this morning. 2 are by phone and 2 are here with us in the meeting. We will take our public comments by phone first. And our very first public comment will be Alderman Jason Irvin. I would like to remind all of our presenters that they each have 3 minutes to speak and that you should not direct your comments towards any individual in particular. Alderman Irvin
Yes.
ready?
Alderman Irvin, you can proceed.
Hello,
We
Yes.
can hear you.
hello. Oh, you can hear me very well. First of all, thank you all for creating this forum to have these comments. Want to just take this opportunity to thank the authority for all of the work that you all are doing, primarily around our rail service. On the west side of Chicago, we've had some real challenges around, especially the Pulaski corridor and some of the issues around the opioid epidemic and crisis that has been plaguing our community. So I just want to thank the authority for the work that you all are doing to keep these stations up and keep them spruced and clean and with the refresh and renew. I know we may have to spend a little more time than normal at a station because of some of the challenges that we face, but I just want to thank CTA for rising to the occasion to make sure that we have clean and equitable service here on the west side of Chicago. Furthermore, the work that we're seeing on reducing the carbon footprint with the electric buses that we had an opportunity to see not too long ago is showing that you guys are moving in the right direction. As we look forward to the work that you all are doing as the transportation hub and helping people on the west side of Chicago make their way to be a part of this economic system that we have, we definitely need to make sure that we continue the strong service to residents on the west side of Chicago. And we appreciate the work that the authority is doing and getting people to work, getting our young people to school, and helping people to lead a full and fulfilled life. I'm glad to see that work is starting on the Blue Line. We got to keep moving west with that. And I know that you all will get the job done as I see the work that's happening on the far eastern end of our ward down near Racine and other places to the east. So we just want you all to continue the positive work that you all are doing and make sure that we continue to prioritize service to what many consider as underserved communities. And I just want to encourage you all to continue the service that you're doing and continue the upkeep and the maintenance that is happening. And as needed, the capital improvements that are necessary to make transit work for everyone. So again, thank you all and enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Our next public commenter is Tiago Pappas.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
How's it going? My name is Tiago Pappas. I'm a property owner in the East Lake Butte neighborhood, and I've been asked to speak on my experience with the RPM team. You know, several years back, actually, we worked with Joe Harmoning on a complex project on one of our buildings where we actually tore down just part of our building as opposed to tearing down the whole building, which I think a win-win for both us and for the city. And that turned out it was difficult, but you know it worked out well with Joe, and we were very thankful that we were able to get that personal touch and get that project done with him. More recently, Joe has put us in touch with a couple members of the RPM team, Jeff Wilson and Stephanie Cavazos, and as it relates to meeting with prospective tenants at our buildings where there's construction right in front of the building. So Jeff and Stephanie have been very open to meeting, very flexible, and it's been a big help for me because when I'm doing these leases, I want the prospective tenants to hear it from the CTA what exactly are going to be the challenges, and they've also been helpful with some potential solutions to some issues. Like, so for example, we have a building where there was a large kind of beer patio, outdoor seating area that was right in where the construction was going to take place, and they helped that tenant find an alternate patio area, and also in addition provide a future place where they could have a patio once the construction is complete. So they've been very helpful, and that's been good. I mean, the construction has been difficult on our tenants. We've actually had a couple tenants go out of business, but that's kind of beyond the control of the CTA team. But they have been helpful and proposing potential solutions and making things a bit easier. In addition, we've talked about future potential investment opportunities for us. We're into historic preservation, and we've been impressed by the job that the CTA and their contractors are doing on the Vautrevers building that has been moved over to make way for the new track. So that's been an impressive feat, and we are interested in buying that building in the future. So, of course, we're a little early here, but we've talked about that, and they've kind of kept us abreast of that. And yeah, so it's been, it's been rough, but I think the team being responsive and helpful has made it a little bit easier for us.
Thank
Any
you.
questions?
Our next public commenter is Keanu Gottlicker.
You. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, President Carter, my name is Keanu Gottlicker, and I'm an organizer of Commuters Take Action, a group of Chicagoans fighting for better transit. It's been 14 months since the Meeting the Moment plan was announced, and a lot has changed in the world since, but one thing hasn't: CTA. This week, the new CTA rail schedules went into effect. These schedules represent a third consecutive cut into how much rail service is provided. This is not an optimization or whatnot. When there's less service being offered, that means there was a schedule cut. L service has been cut by 24%. Let's not try to hide it. I would like to invite the board members to take the Blue Line train with me during the morning rush hour. Even with 10 trains per hour compared to pre-pandemic 21 trains per hour, intervals are unpredictable, and so is my commute. Once a delayed train arrives at the platform, operators keep mashing the doors closing announcement button in frustration, while angry commuters try to find every last inch inside the train. Many have had to drastically adjust their travel patterns or go back to their cars just to be able to show up on work on time. Please come experience this before you consider praising the agency's leadership again. The leadership has often painted this to be a national problem. And while it may have started this way, other agencies have found a way out of this. In New York, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C., more service is being offered, and some agencies are running more service than ever. I recently visited New York City to see a station alert on the Q train that service has been reduced from 8 to 10 minutes. This is helpful to riders. Meanwhile, here in Chicago, the CTA is doing everything it can to hide the fact that my service has been reduced by 35%. The only way to fix this is by improving working conditions for frontline employees. One would think that access to a bathroom is a basic worker's right. Not at the CTA. The agency is also struggling to fill new positions. So why is it that if one is interested in becoming a rail operator, there is exactly zero information on the career paths on the CTA website? The leadership often says that fixing this is a marathon, not a sprint. I would say that if you haven't made any progress in the race for so long, it's perhaps time to realize that you're not ready for such a race and retire. Tonight at 5:30 p.m., Commuters Take Action will be holding a protest in front of this building to demand for better service. If you'd like to hear from riders who are affected by this agency's ineptitude every day, please come join us. Thank you.
Our last public commenter is Brandon McFadden.
Morning, members of the board and President Carter. Many of you know me by now. My name is Brandon McFadden, an organizer with Commuters Take Action, a local collective of riders advocating for better transit. We'd like to congratulate the CTA on the reopening of the closed Blue Line section. Although much of the CTA board and leadership are not regular riders, it's safe to assume that active riders will appreciate the smoother journeys. If you haven't already, I'd encourage you to go check out the new track work. While you heard from Fabio today about the further schedule reductions, I'm here to talk about bus rapid transit, or BRT, and the lack of it here in Chicago. BRT is a modern and equitable style of transit, utilizing dedicated bus lanes and prepaid boarding stations. Think of it as ground level train service with increased adaptability. BRT routes are cost effective, minimally disruptive, and can be implemented on roads as narrow as 86 feet. In 2011, Chicago started a BRT study, but made little progress on the pilot route. Unfortunately, this project lost momentum due to a lack of political support, insufficient public awareness, and policies favoring cars. The Better Streets for Buses plan was introduced a year ago. However, there have been no updates from either the CTA or CDOT. Remarkably, Chicago remains one of the few major transit systems without a dedicated BRT strategy. For an agency persistently advocating for faster bus travel, this lack of action is discouraging. You may recall President Carter praising the Brisbane's metro system's 3-minute headways during the board meeting in August. It's important to note that the yet-to-launch Brisbane system, featuring electric vehicles and dedicated routes, will offer 3-minute intervals only during peak periods after it commences service in late 2024. BRT not only enhances the passenger experience with easy boarding and allows for quicker and more frequent service, but it also significantly improves the well-being of our transit operators. Well-executed BRT routes can cut trip durations by up to 50%. which are the only transit cuts that Chicagoans deserve. This allows operators more rest between trips, a crucial aspect frequently sacrificed to maintain service levels. We are urging the CTA, the Chicago and Illinois Departments of Transportation, city alders, and other political leaders to take immediate action. Our research suggests that the optimal starting points for BRT are Ashland and Western Avenue and 63rd Street. Our transit system is in a state of crisis, and service optimizations just won't suffice. Mayor Brandon Johnson recently celebrated our city as the fastest in the world after a marathon runner set a world record on Sunday. Our transit network should be even faster, and that starts with bus rapid transit. As always, we extend an open invitation to both the board and the CTA to collaborate and provide direct input as we collectively address the challenges exacerbated by the ongoing pandemic. After all, we still share a common goal, a frequent, safe, and reliable transit system for all Chicagoans. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of our public comment speakers for taking time out to address the board, your concerns and feedback. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to take a moment to let our public know that we hear you. We've heard you before, and we recognize that there is still work to do to improve the quality of services. I know that some of our speakers have previously met with our CTA team to discuss their concerns. We heard you then, we hear you now. Our goal as a board is to work with the CTA leadership to ensure that we are providing the best service and to our riders. The board has and will continue to work with leadership to reach that goal. The unfortunate reality is that we're still dealing with the impact of a once in a lifetime pandemic, which has impacted every industry, including the CTA. As you know, we've been trying to hire additional workers, which we've had much success. We're not fully there. If you know of potential employees that want to join our team, your colleagues, your friends, that could make CTA a better place, we welcome them to apply to join our team. The board will continue to monitor the progress of the leadership here, including President Carter and his team, as they develop strategies to assist us in these challenges today and in the near future. Leave it open for any other comments by any other board members.
Director Lee?
We recognize this is an issue, like it's serious. We understand that. I ride the bus, I take the train, and I hear you. We're working on this. We're sharing the same goals that you have and the public. And so we recognize and thank you for your time.
Director Miller?
Thank you. Well, thank all the comments that we've heard, and we certainly agree with our chairman and that we are certainly hearing you and we are monitoring, looking for things to get better. Thanks.
Director Jakes?
I have actually 3 questions that I typed here. Before I say that, I want to say thank you. Thank you all so much. And that's just not a fly-by-night thing. I really appreciate, what you're saying and the challenge and holding us to the fire. So thank you. But now, and I don't know, Chairman, if this is the right time to do this, but I really want to talk to President Carter. Kind of almost like if you can just give me an elevator pitch here. I know you have your president's report and you may be getting ready to answer this, but based upon what I'm hearing and what we've heard throughout the months, just 3 things. One, so I am put it in a cup I can drink from type of guy. And what I mean by that is if I don't know transit language, you are indeed a transit aficionado. But I'm Joe Q Public. I don't know what all of that means. So, I'm reading the media reports about transit agencies are restoring service and CTA are not. What's your answer to me?
Well, my answer to you would be, you need to read carefully what the transit agencies are actually saying.
Okay.
And let me put that in context for you. I have conversations with my peers, these other transit systems, on a regular basis. Everyone is having the same problem that we're having. One of the things you have to remember is that when the pandemic hit, just about every other transit system in the country cut service. They cut it 3 years ago. And so when they talk about restoring service, they're talking about starting to bring their service back from a previous cut that they had already done. We did not cut service. We then started trying to address our service challenges really over the course of the past year. The other thing to keep in mind is that when they say they're bringing back service, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're meeting their service. In other words, one of the things that we have focused on for the past year is stabilizing the reliability of the service that we are providing. In other words, before we began our optimization process, we had a service schedule that said we were providing pre-pandemic level service. The truth of the matter is, we're only providing a fraction of that service, which was a point that was made over and over again by the same group that's talking to us today. We adjusted our schedules to reflect the fact that we needed to have our schedules be in alignment with our workforce availability in order to meet those schedules. And today, we are meeting our service schedule at a much higher percentage than we ever were a year ago. Those are the percentages that you hear me talk about when I go through and went through the meeting the moment plan. I've always been very clear that percentage was based on a lower level of service than we were providing in 2019. Same thing is happening at all these other transit systems that you're hearing about. And if you listen carefully to what they're saying, they're not suggesting that they're necessarily meeting all of their service. They're just suggesting that they're adding service. And the reason they're not meeting their service is because of ongoing workforce challenges, which every transit agency is facing, ongoing challenges around reliability of equipment and other things. But the point is that if you look at one transit system, you're seeing one transit system. The factors that are impacting their operations, which are the same factors that are impacting CTA, are not that different, but they're all unique from the standpoint of, what the hiring situation is in Boston could be very different than what the hiring situation is in Chicago. But the ridership levels are in Boston are very different than they are in Chicago. What people have been, what people are coming back to work in Boston can be very different than it is in Chicago. The point is, we are implementing a strategy that was first intended to stabilize our service. That was the first thing that our customers wanted to know, that, all the ghost buses and all the ghost trains that were a result of scheduled service that's not being provided were going to be addressed. We have done that. That was what this year has been about. Next year is going to be about increasing and adding service, because we're now starting to get our numbers of hires up to the point where we can start to do that. And you'll be hearing much more about that as part of my budget presentation next month. The point is that there are thousands and thousands of employees who work here every day who are doing their best to put out service as best as they can every single day. Those people are reading the same stories that all the rest of us are reading and are feeling the pressure of what else they can do to improve the service that we're providing. We're committed to doing everything that we can do both now and in the future, and we will continue to be committed to that. I am sorry that there are people who feel like it's not where it should be in 2019. But the truth of the matter is, and I know I keep saying this and I will keep saying this, that you're not going to resolve this overnight. It doesn't matter where you are or who's running your system or what city you're in. You're going to continue to have this problem. And we know that because it isn't just unique to the Chicago Transit Authority or to transit. You see this occurring in the private sector. You see this occurring in other transportation sectors. Everybody is having the same problem. No one's got a solution to it. No one's fixed their problems. No one has said everything is great and we're back to pre-2019 ever again. They're all working the problem, just like we're working the problem. I could remain committed to doing that. I remain committed to being innovative, to finding new ways to address the challenge that we're facing, to do what I need to do to both recruit and retain employees at CTA. But it needs to be understood that I'm not a magician, that I can't snap my fingers and everything will be great again. I wish it could be that way more than anybody else, believe me. I know how important it is for us to get our servants back. And we're going to get our servants back. Let's be clear about that. It's going to take time. And people need to understand that and understand that we will continue to work to do the things that we can to improve that service as best as we can as we move forward.
You answered number 2 and 3. You stole my thunder. But thank you. No.
You just took out half.
No, one of my questions was the difference between cuts versus optimizations. You addressed it. I mean, if you want to.
Well, it's funny because optimization can have both a negative connotation and a positive connotation. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. Right now, optimization is being viewed in a very negative way because it has been portrayed as cuts. But you know what? You know what I'm going to be doing next year? Optimization. But you know what the optimization is going to be? Increased level of service. Optimization was always intended to be a word to address the fact that the service levels are going to be reflective of the workforce that I had to put out service. It is a swing that we are going through, but it was never intended, as some people have suggested, to mean the same thing as service cuts. And you're going to continue to hear me use the word optimization next year as we see service increases. Because the point is, it's not going to be immediately back to 2019. I'm not going to have full service back on January 1st, but you're going to see improvements. We know that there need to be improvements because our customers are telling us that there need to be improvements. They've accepted the fact that the reliability has improved over where it was a year ago. And now what they're telling us is they want frequency. Frequency means increased level of service. Increased level of service, what I'm able to do as I get my workforce back up. The two are directly connected. And if you look at any other transit system around the country, you will see that their workforce numbers are directly connected to the level of service that they're putting out. The number of transit agencies that can tell you that they've got their workforce back to 2019 levels is very, very small. Because as an industry, we continue to have workforce problems. If they don't have the workforce, it's a simple math problem. If you don't have the workforce, you're not providing the same level of service. You may be adding service, you may be scheduling service. That's not the same as providing service. We've tried to be transparent about what we're doing. We were told that we weren't being transparent. We have given and we continue to give more data about what we're doing and how we're doing than I would argue just about any other in the country. What that has meant is that we have been open to criticism for doing that. That's fine. I'm okay with criticism. I'm okay that people are not happy with where we are today because we're not happy. But we are going to continue to work to improve it. You are going to see those improvements and you'll start hearing about those improvements as part of my budget. The good news is we did what we wanted to get done this year. We stabilized our service. Yes, there are some things that are going on that I'll be happy to explain about what happened with the PIC. I have that as part of my remarks, but I'm happy to explain it at any point in time. As is always the case, there are scheduling changes that we have to make to reflect the reality of what we're doing on our system. It is not new. Whenever we've done major construction work on our system, we make schedule adjustments. Sometimes those schedule adjustments are to the good, sometimes they're to the bad. We are doing, as you heard from Alderman Irvin and others, significant work on the Blue Line. I would point out that the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line is the last branch in our entire system to have any significant work done to it. It is in desperate need of a complete rebuild. And I am working very hard to get the money to not only do the eastern portion of the branch, but the entire branch so that we can address the transportation needs for that part of our city. But in order to do that, there's a cost. That cost is the level of service that I can provide while I'm doing that work. It's the same cost that the citizens on the north side of the city are experiencing with red purple modernization. It's the same cost that the citizens on the south side of the city experienced when we did Red Line South. It is the same cost that we will incur whenever we do major construction work. And when we do that, we adjust our service to reflect it. The good news is the work that I'm doing on the Forest Park branch of the Blue Line will be finished later in November. And when it is finished, we are going to be putting service back. We don't do that through a PIC. We do that through what we call bulletins. They are something that we use every single day. They are the tools that we use to manage the variability of the service that we provide. It is the way in which I can be flexible in what I do because the PIC process is very rigid. It is something that only happens one or twice, 2 or 3 times a year. And it is something that has to be locked in almost 6 months in advance of when we do it. All of you know what we've been going through over the past 3 years. If I could predict what was going to happen 6 months from now, I'd probably be a rich man. The truth of the matter is what's been needed is the ability to be flexible, which is something that we continue to do. And we use all the tools, all the scheduling tools that we have to be able to accomplish that. So when people talk about CTA is cutting service, they aren't necessarily hearing that in the context of what we're really doing. We are adjusting the service. You can call it a cut if you want to, but we are adjusting the service to deal with the realities of what's happening on our system. In this case, construction work. It is something we've always done and something we'll always continue to do. And when we're finished with the construction work, we adjust the service back. I'm going to be just as transparent about that part of the process as I was about the PIC itself, which I admit and will certainly, acknowledge we were transparent about. I wasn't hiding the fact that we were doing that. We put that information out there. So this wasn't I'm lying to anybody or I'm not telling the public what's going on. We put out a press release telling the public what we were doing. Media didn't necessarily cover the press release. They chose instead to cover what we did with the PIC. But the point is that we are going to continue to be transparent because that's what our customers have asked us to do, and that's what the board has told me to do. And so we will be informing the public as we complete this work of the service that we're restoring, that we had to reduce because of the impact of what we're doing. The other point I would make is that because of the ridership challenges that we face, when I've had to make adjustments to service, that sometimes impacts more than one line because I have to move people around, which is part of what happened here. When I say we're putting the service back, I'm not just talking about putting it back on the Blue Line. I'm talking about putting it back everywhere that I had to adjust the service to manage what was happening here.
And that was my second question.
And you will see that in the work that will come out in November. So what I'm telling you is that the reality of dealing with what we're going through, because we're not done with it yet, is going to require a level of flexibility around how we do what we do and ways in which we continue to provide the services that the public wants. But it also requires a level of tolerance from the people who are talking about it to at least try to understand the context of what we're doing and not try to create a narrative that, quite honestly, not only impacts me, but impacts the thousands of people who are working day and night to put out this service, suggesting that they in some way aren't doing what they should be doing. We're all trying to do what we need to do here. There is no one who's out here trying to find reasons to undermine the service that we're providing at CTA. And it's important that the public understand that. And it's just as important that the media report it in a fair and balanced way. I'm going to keep working on that part. I own that responsibility. I am the spokesperson and the figurehead of this agency. People will want to criticize me, and that's their right. But I want you to understand that when you criticize me, you're also criticizing many other people who don't deserve that. They're doing the best they can do. It's my job to make sure that they get the resources to do that. And we're going to continue working to make that happen. The board has been very supportive of that exact point. And for that, I'm very appreciative. But I know there's more to do and we're going to do more. But I think it's important that people understand what we do and understand what we're not doing and not try to create a narrative that we're doing something that we're not.
Thank you. We have to move on. Any other comments?
I said I wasn't going to filibuster and I sat up there and filibustered.
Any other comments from any other board?
I think the president's probably given most of his report, but, you know, because of,
That was an elevator up to the Burj Khalifa.
because
You know,
maybe something, Mr. President, as we talk about, you know, the adjustment, if a train is coming late, and to the speaker's point, then train is leaving, I guess, at the same time, so many minutes here, if it's not full, could somebody maybe
So, you know,
kind of adjustment?
yes, I mean, one of the things that we've done, particularly on the O'Hare branch of the Blue Line, which has been a challenge because of the demand for that portion of the system. Yeah, one side note to make. It was a challenge before the pandemic too. Just to remind everybody, I was having issues about leaving people on the platform and the level of service I could provide that was occurring even before the pandemic happened. It's more of a challenge right now because of both the service issues that we're having as well as the construction work that we're doing. And we are doing a lot more direct monitoring of particularly certain stations along the O'Hare branch of the Blue Line in order to do that. You may recall that one of the things that we did months ago was we created a video feed that we put up on our website that allows the public to see what the crowding looks like at certain stations along the O'Hare branch of the Blue Line. That same video feed is used by our staff to basically monitor the service levels and to make adjustments to service when we're starting to see overcrowding. In fact, over the course of this past week, as we have seen the challenges that have occurred as a result of the pit, there have been adjustments made to our service to try to help alleviate some of that impact. The biggest adjustment is going to happen when we finish this last piece of work in November, which is going to allow us to restore a portion of the track that allows us to turn trains quickly to continue to provide more service to that branch. But we're going to continue to use every tool that we have to both monitor the service and to make adjustments both in real time and also through schedules to deal with the realities that we're facing, whether it be the blue line, whether it be the red line, whether it be the brown line. You know, while we continue to obviously deal with the bigger challenge, which is to get our workforce back to a level where we can provide the service levels that we were providing in 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item of business on the agenda is our president's report. We will ask him to streamline.
I will.
Time.
I will streamline, and let me just make a few very quick comments. And I'm not going to read my prepared remarks. I'm just going to hit some highlights. So I know there were some pictures and other things planned for me to show. Let's just forego that for this, for the purpose of brevity here. And let me just give you a couple of highlights, things I wanted you to know. One, I'm very pleased to announce that we've got another $100 million in funding for the Red Line extension as the result of the action by the MPO CMAP yesterday. I also want you to know we've got another $68 million in funding for electric buses in that same meeting, which will allow us to continue to move forward with the procurements of more electric buses to get to a zero emission bus fleet. It'll cover the cost of about 40 additional buses, plus some charging stations to go along with that. I mentioned to you, excuse me, a little bit earlier about crime. And I wanted to basically just give you an update on what's going on with crime. Based on the information released by the police department in September, crime is down 12% year to date, and it's down 12% month over month compared to September of 2022. These statistics reflect a 9% reduction in violent crime year to date. I don't have all good news though. Unfortunately, in that same category, there has been an 11% increase month to date in violent crime. One of the reasons for that is crime that's happening at bus stops. And that crime does get reported as part of the overall transit crime number. But as you can imagine, most of those bus stops are not on CTA property. And therefore CTA has very little control over them. But we continue to work very closely with the police department, as we discussed earlier, to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to make our system safe. I mentioned briefly ridership. I just want to cover that real quick for you. Since August, CTA customers have taken more than 1 million rides on 15 different days through the end of last week. In fact, Tuesday and Wednesday of last week were our two highest ridership days since the beginning of the pandemic. In both days, we received 1.05 million rides system-wide. Additionally, CTA has provided nearly 6.3 million rides last week, which is a new weekly high since the start of the pandemic. It was also the 5th week out of the last 6 that we exceeded 6 million rides, with the Labor Day holiday week as the only exception. I also briefly, the Chicago Marathon, we saw a significant ridership boost during the marathon. Our 3-day pass rides were up 50% compared to the prior week, which was primarily driven by marathon weekend traffic. And 3-day ridership between Thursday and Saturday accounted for 93% of the week-over-week increases. 3-day pass ridership for the week almost doubled last year's ridership for the week of 2022 marathon. So as we discussed before, special events are certainly driving a lot of ridership opportunities for us, be it Taylor Swift, be it Beyonce, be it Chicago Marathon. And we're certainly benefiting from the ridership that customers are using during that. The final thing I want to say, because I'm keeping it really short today, is as I indicated to you, I'm going to be releasing my fiscal year 2024 budget recommendation in the next week. We'll be briefing the board on that budget at your next board meeting, but I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview of what's going to be in the budget. The spending plan is going to include moving forward with increased service levels for 2024, and it will also have no fare increases for 2024. It will specifically allocate increased resources for new system-wide cleaning initiatives and for expanded outreach to individuals who on our system are either unhoused or struggling with mental health challenges. We're going to continue to keep the momentum going in a positive direction, and the budget's going to reflect that. It's going to be the opportunity for us to start to set the tone for what the future of public transportation is going to look like for the city of Chicago and for CTA. It is really important that we're doing that because we also, as you know, are getting ready to go down to Springfield and have a conversation about the funding needed to keep the system operating, as well as Metro and Pace. It's really important that as we begin that conversation, that we're establishing a vision for what the future system can be and what the opportunities are that exist for us if we get this right. I can tell you that we'll be spending a lot of time focused on Springfield and on the funding conversation that will start up. And I'm excited about the possibility of what we're going to be able to achieve that's going to really put CTA in a position to amplify the work that we want to do and to create the system that I know the board believes CTA needs to provide and that the city definitely wants us to provide for them in the future. That, Mr. Chairman, concludes my abbreviated report for this meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
One quick question for you. I don't know if it's for someone else.
Yes.
Because the gentleman talked about bathrooms.
Operators have access to all the bathrooms throughout our system. Whether they're at a terminal or whether they're at a station, they have keys that allow them to access to bathrooms. Bus operators have access to bathrooms at certain places along the routes. We either work to create arrangements with private sector companies to allow operators to use their bathrooms, like at a McDonald's or something like that, or we have facilities at certain bus turnarounds that are available for you to use the bathroom at. If someone needs to take what we call a personal, they're not denied their ability to do that. You know, we're not forcing people to continue operating trains where they have to go to the bathroom. I will tell you that when an operator takes a personal, that impacts service. And people need to understand that. That service impact is a lot greater when you're dealing with the level of service that we're providing today than what we were providing in 2019. But I am not aware of any issue with operators being able to access a bathroom if they need it. We work very closely with the union leadership to address concerns around that. And I can tell you that the union leadership is very vocal with me if there are challenges around their operators being able to access bathrooms. And I haven't heard that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One quick question, regarding just highlighting more job opportunities and make it more visible. Are there plans for, I know we do a lot of hiring fairs, et cetera. Maybe there's a opportunity to highlight and spotlight more of it on our website or in the Venture app. I'm just thinking.
We do highlight it on our website. We also highlight it a lot on social media. We do a lot more portrayals of our employees and the career path that employees can pursue at CTA. What I'd like to do is maybe give the board a briefing on what we're doing to actually promote jobs at CTA. And we can do that at the next board meeting so that there is a better understanding of what the tools are that we use to do that and the reaction that we get. And I think it's important to remember that we're getting really good turnouts at our job fairs. I didn't talk about the Second Chance Job Fair or the event that we had this past month. We celebrated the anniversary of our Second Chance program, and Reverend Miller was at that event along with Alderman Irvin and other elected officials. But we also had a Second Chance hiring fair the following weekend, where we had over 400 people show up to participate in it. That was just for Second Chance. That wasn't our regular job fair opportunity. So we feel like we're getting the word out. We obviously do have more work to do. I think there are the ongoing challenges of convincing people that taking as a bus operator, as a flagger, as a CSA or any other entry level jobs is a selling job for us. And I have some conversations about this with my colleagues as well. There are a lot of things that are impacting why people don't want to work these jobs, not the least of which is the way in which they're treated. And I don't mean necessarily treated by management, but the way they're treated by the public. The abuse that our employees put up with, our frontline employees put up with, is unconscionable. A lot of it had to do with the way people have been acting in general in a post-pandemic environment. There's a lot less tolerance, a lot less, what you would call just good manners, good behavior. And it certainly plays itself out on our system. That makes it difficult to recruit people to go into these jobs. And we have to do a better job at that. But, the dedication and the work that it requires to do this work is something that has to be tailored to a new generation of employee. The employees that we're hiring today is very different than the employee we hired when I started at CTA. Have different expectations. They have different, desires. They have, different levels of commitment to doing the work. There are a lot of things that we've done to try to address that, not just financial things like making the job full-time now instead of part-time. Mr. Chairman, you will know that it used to be when you started working at CTA, you came in as a part-time employee, which meant your schedule changed from day to day. You didn't know what hours you were working. You didn't know, how long you were working or anything else like that. Well, people don't like that. They want work-life balance. It's hard to manage that in a system that has to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we're working to figure that out. And we're going to continue to do that over the course of the next year. But yeah, we got to get more people on board, and we're going to continue to look for ways to do that. And I'm happy to give the board a more detailed briefing on what we're doing, and certainly welcome any ideas or thoughts the board may have on what we can do to improve it.
Okay, thank you. Our next order of business is the approval of minutes of the regular board meeting of September 22nd, 2023. May I have a motion to approve?
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee, Director Miller, Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
Director James.
Yes.
Director Ortiz. Director Shaw. Motion to approve the minutes from September 22nd, 2023 passes.
Thank you. Our next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Kent, that there's an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, the board will move to go into executive session pursuant to the Illinois Open Meetings Act, sections 2C, 1, 11, and 21.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by council.
So please.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that the board move into executive session. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Ja. Director Ortiz. Director Jakes.
Yes.
Chairman Barclay. Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Lee. Yes. The motion passes.
Recording in progress.
I will now entertain a motion to return to open session.
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz, that we return to open session. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee? Yes. Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz? Yes. Director Ja? Motion carries. Board agenda item, Chairman.
We will now address board agenda item 5A. Kent?
Thank you, Chairman. In item 5A, the board reviewed the closed meeting minutes from September the 22nd, 2023.
Thank you, Kent. May I have a motion to approve the closed session minutes for September 22nd, 2023?
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller, seconded by Director Ortiz. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Motion to approve the closed session minutes from September 22nd, 2023 passes.
We will now address board agenda item 5B. Kent?
Thank you, Chairman. In connection with board agenda item 5B, the board reviewed the recommended findings and decision of the hearing committee appointed in connection with a review of the discharge of CTA employee Carmela Sanchez under section 28 of the Metropolitan Transit Authority Act. After hearing the testimony of witnesses and reviewing the evidence, the hearing committee has recommended that this board sustain Ms. Sanchez discharge.
Thank you, Kent. May I have a motion to sustain the hearing panel's recommendation for Carmela Sanchez?
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that the hearing panel's recommendations for Carmela Sanchez be sustained. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz? Director Ja?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Our next order of business is board matters. Georgette, do we have any board matters this morning?
Chairman Barclay, we do not have any board matters this morning.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget, which will be presented by Director Jakes.
Committee met earlier this morning and approved the September 22nd, 2023 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. Committee reviewed 10 ordinances. Review of an ordinance amending ordinance number 018-35 as amended, authorizing a modifying the short-term borrowing program for capital purposes secured by sales tax receipts, authorizing the issuance from time to time of obligations secured by such revenues in an aggregate principal amount outstanding at one time not in excess of 600 million pursuant to such short-term borrowing programs, and authorizing the execution and delivery of one or more supplemental indentures. Review of an ordinance consenting to the assignment of a lease at the Kimball Rail Station. Review of ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Forest Preserves of Cook County to convey property and take mitigation measures due to impacts from the Red Line Extension project. Review of ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Park District for the acquisition of a park parcel for the Red Line Extension project in exchange for improvements to and conveyance placement parcels. Review of ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Chicago Housing Authority for the acquisition of a parcel and acceptance of permanent and temporary easements for the Red Line Extension project. Review of ordinance authorizing payment of up to $6 million for stipends to encourage proposals for the Red Line Extension project design build procurement. Review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority for access to an aerial photography subscription. Review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal FY 2022 transit security grant funds. Review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of cybersecurity insurance coverage for policy year November 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2024. Review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of blanket railroad protective liability insurance for policy year November 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2024. Mr. Chairman, the committee also reviewed 8 contracts. The committee placed the 10 ordinances and 8 of the contracts on the omnibus. Committee approved and recommended for board approval 10 ordinances and the 8 contracts. That concludes the report of the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Director Jakes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the omnibus.
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz to approve the omnibus. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja? The motion to approve the omnibus passes.
Our next order of business is the construction report, which is my understanding, we're deferring this month.
I believe that the recommendation, there is a recommendation to defer the construction report to next month, Chairman Barclay, in the essence of time.
Our final order of business is new business. Georgette, is there any new business?
Chairman Barclay, there is no new business.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting October 13th, 2023.
So move.
Second. It's been moved by Director Miller and seconded by Director Ortiz that the Transit Board meeting for October 13th, 2023 be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, then we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.